Everyone alive now has their own podcast. Everyone is out there talking about the rise of consciousness. The more it's being broadcast as a kind of placebo or sugar-coated little gentle, soft little thing, the more hardcore I'm becoming. This period we're in right now, and by right now, I mean 2024 through to 2028, it's a single, astrologically speaking, it's the single biggest period of concentrated and compressed change in human history. It represents the end of our apprenticeship as a species and the emergence into a whole new paradigm of elevated consciousness whilst retaining identity and individuality. We're not about to become telepathic. We are about to become much more sensitive, intuitive, compassionate. This will end up in a world with no borders and a much greater rise of a collective spirituality. And if it doesn't, this is the difference between moving into utopia or dystopia. If it doesn't, if we are still the same as we are now in a few years' time, we're screwed. 300 years, we will be extinct. Our great-grandchildren will not see their grandchildren. There has never been a time, as far as we know, where the responsibility for the evolution of a species has been put on the species itself. We are the first species that's ever can say we can choose to evolve or not.
Our healthcare system.
Welcome to Cosmic Convergence. Today we have a truly unique guest, professional astrologer Steve Judd, who has been bringing astrology to the world for over 45 years. Steve's work helps us better understand life from another perspective, offering insights into character, relationships, and the cycles of change that have shaped humanity since ancient times. As the world goes through profound transformations, voices like Steve's reminds us that astrology can still serve as a powerful tool not only to make sense of the past and present, but to help the next generation navigate the future with clarity and purpose. So settle in as we dive into a fascinating conversation. And if you enjoy this discussion, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode of Cosmic Conversions. Welcome, Steve. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm just looking over my shoulder to see if I can find that guy you've just been talking about.
Yeah, so just for people who don't know you, Steve, how did astrology find you?
Great question to start with. Two separate events. In 1977, I found my first ephemeris, and I looked at it, and for those of you that don't know, an ephemeris is it's like a bus timetable or a train timetable, except that it's a timetable of planetary places for every day, for every year, and sometimes for 100 years. And I found my first ephemeris in 1977, and just by looking up and down and across, left and right, the columns, I realized that I was looking at not just linear patterns of numerical growth, patterns that were slowing down and speeding up. And when I realized they were planetary places, I could picture the orbits in my mind. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting, because I've always been good with numbers and pattern recognition. And then in 1980, I discovered this idea. Someone put a book in front of me about the North Node, and I read it. And I thought, how does this old boy who lives in New York, who's never met me and doesn't know of my existence, know me so well? And more importantly, how can I do this? So that was how it started. I did my first horoscope in 1980. I did my first horoscope correctly in 1981, once I'd got the techniques right. And then doing horoscopes for individuals has been my only source of income since 1999. And I know it sounds crazy, but I know I've done about somewhere between 35 and 40,000 readings in the last 45 years.
That's amazing.
And 10 to 15,000 of them were on the astrological phone lines in a concentrated period of 4 years. But that's where I cut my teeth. That's how I learned my trade. Because when you're doing readings on a phone line where people are paying top dollar, and you've got literally, hello, my name's Steve, I'm an astrologer. Would you like me to look at your chart? Okay, what's your date, time, place, and birth? Right, let's go. Vroom. You haven't got a chance to think. You're just straight in, because they're paying you a lot of money for each minute. So you got to be quick. But that really made me a lot sharper. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, especially with how you present yourself. And I've been starting to listen to your podcast for a while now. I'm pretty amazed that from your perspective, because it was a different perspective than I was used to hearing, just because personally, my role in the group, like my background and how I got into everything was more, I had personal experiences that led me to investigating near-death experiences and then listening and studying these for over 12 years. And then eventually you get good enough, with practice to know what you're talking about. But I was just so fascinated by the stuff that I was learning from people who, claim to have left the physical body and come back. They're sharing a lot of information that's right on par with what you're talking about how the universe works and the state of the world and what's happening and what's going on. And like I watched one particular podcast. I felt like I needed to speak to you. So thanks again for being here for that. So appreciate that. And just to get another thing started, one of our co-hosts couldn't be here today, but he had a question for you. He just wanted to ask, how would you explain the key differences between ancient and traditional astrology and modern astrology? Are there insights or levels of clarity in traditional astrology that are often overlooked by people who primarily focus on modern astrology?
There's two questions there. I'll deal with the second one first. I think modern astrology is much more relevant to today's world than ancient astrology for two reasons. One is that we live in a modern world with modern technology and modern techniques. Secondly, is that we've come a long way in a very short space of time in the last 50 years. But regarding the difference between the ancient and the modern, it very much depends what you call the ancient, because if you're looking at ancient astrology in terms of the Indian, Hindus, Sanskrit, the Sikh, or the Oriental, as in the Chinese, as opposed to Western, there is a fundamental difference. And that it's the difference between sidereal and tropical, between Vedic and Western. And that is basically down to A, the way it's interpreted, and B, the meaning. And it can be summarized loosely by saying that the majority of the Eastern forms of astrology have a lot more to do with concepts such as fate and destiny, whereas modern Western astrology is more in tune with free will and self-determination. But then there's the other form of ancient astrology where Western astrology takes its roots from the Babylonian, the Sumerian, which led to the Chaldean, the Assyrian, and then the Babylonian. And we tend to ignore Babylonian astrology. The Babylonian Empire lasted 1,500 years. And it was uninterrupted, 1,500 years of observation of lunar patterns, lunar cycles, planetary movements. And it is from the Babylonians that we get the first understandings of the 12 signs of the zodiac, or the ideas of the ascendant, or the meaning of individual planets. We have a great deal to be grateful to the Babylonians for. It's evolved over centuries.
Yeah. And speaking of evolution of astrology, I was listening to one of your podcasts and you had mentioned, and it was a very good point because it was something that was a question in the back of my mind where you had mentioned that, back then, because, we didn't have the technology and we could only, see to a certain degree. And then we had certain, planetary bodies become more into our awareness, which would have affected the energy from then till now, because now we're aware of a planetary body that we weren't aware of before, which, and correct me if I'm wrong, may have caused a shift in conscious awareness or something like that.
Absolutely. Bearing in mind that also just in the last 100 years, we've got new planets, Uranus. We got Pluto and Chiron in the last 100 years. Neptune, 180, 190 years ago, 250 years ago. In the last 10 generations, we've had a lot of new planets discovered, which give new archetypes, greater depth of meaning. But also, it's only in the last 500 years, which is not a long time, that astronomy and astrology have become different things. It's only since the discovery of a telescope. Primarily, in this day and age, astronomy is the study of the movements of the planets and stars in the heavens, and astrology is the study of the effects of those movements. But up until the 1500s, maybe even say the mid-1600s, it was all the same. It was all lumped together. They were the same thing. So it's only since the age of reason that they've diversified. And now, of
Yeah.
course, no sensible astronomer would have anything to do with astrology.
That makes sense. And I also find it extremely fascinating that even though we come from different perspectives, coming to a similar conclusion about the universe, which it just blew me away when I heard you mention that. I was like, wow. I was like, astrology found him and he invested his life into all of this. I'm coming to the same conclusions. So it's just like very, very fascinating. And I find that, especially with this, in one of the podcasts you had mentioned that there is just this great like shift in awareness coming and we're in the middle of it and it's happening. And I've been seeing that and hearing things from people that aren't even, at least to my knowledge, aren't even invested into astrology, but they're sharing the same message. But you're giving us the objective, this is what's forecasted, this is what's here, and this is what's coming. And it brings a lot of validity to that. So like I really
I mean, I love my astronomy. I'm a member
Yeah.
of quite a few different astronomical groups and associations. I don't tell them that I'm an astrologer.
Well, yeah, I mean, but still, it's thank you for taking the time to do that, and I'm glad, and we can all tell that it's your passion. But in terms of this shift of awareness that's going on, like, what does that look like within the next few years, or even as far out as you want to go?
Everyone alive now has their own podcast. Everyone is out there talking about the rise of consciousness. The more it's being broadcast as a kind of placebo or sugar-coated little gentle, soft little thing, the more hardcore I'm becoming. I haven't got time. I'm 70. I don't have time to make it easy for people to understand. So I just reduce it to single common denominators. This period we're in right now, and by right now, I mean 2024 through to 2028, is the single, astrologically speaking, is the single biggest period of concentrated and compressed change in human history. It represents the end of our apprenticeship as a species and the emergence into a whole new paradigm of elevated consciousness whilst retaining identity and individuality. We're not about to become telepathic. We are about to become much more sensitive, intuitive, compassionate. This will end up in a world with no borders. Trumpists are going to hate me for that one. No borders, probably a global currency, the dissolution of churches, mosques and synagogues into community centres, and a much greater rise of a collective spirituality. And if it doesn't, this is the difference between moving into utopia or dystopia. If it doesn't, if we are still the same as we are now in a few years' time, we're screwed.
Right.
Within 300 years, we will be extinct. Our great-grandchildren will not see their grandchildren.
Right.
It'll be the end of our species, and instead there'll be some type of robotic android labor force serving an ever-decreasing elite who will become increasingly ostracized by the fact that they've lost their humanity, and eventually humans will die out. And that'll be such a waste of 500,000 years of evolution. So yeah, there's a kind of imperative. And what I find fascinating is that when you review the history of this planet from, I don't know, let's say 100 million years to the present, there has never been a time, as far as we know, where the responsibility for the evolution of a species has been put on the species itself. We are the first species that's ever can say we can choose to evolve or not. The dinosaurs got wiped out by a meteorite, and the shockwave that followed that. Other species collapsed through famine or virus. We can choose to evolve or not. That's never happened before. Terence McKenna put it beautifully when he said that human history represents such a radical break to the systems of biological organization that preceded it that it must be the response to some type of dwell point or attractor ahead in the temporal dimensions. We're being pulled, there's a magnet in the future pulling us forward because the universe wants us to evolve. The universe is lonely. We're going to make a breakthrough or a breakdown. And if it's a breakdown, we'll just go back. We won't even go back. We'll just die. as a species?
The mushroom said to me once, it said, this is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars. You don't depart for the stars under calm and orderly conditions. It's a fire in a madhouse. And that's what we have, the fire in the madhouse at the end of time. This is what it's like when a species prepares to move on to the next dimension. The entire destiny of all life on the planet is tied up in this. We are not acting for ourselves or from ourselves. We happen to be the point species on a transformation that will affect every living organism on this planet. It's only going to get weirder. The level of contradiction is going to rise excruciatingly, even beyond the excruciating present levels of contradiction. I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. And at that point, novelty theory can come out of the woods, because eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's just too nuts. It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. I look for the invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, possible human immortality, and at the same time, appalling acts of brutality, genocide, race baiting, homophobia, famine, starvation, because the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed. The collapse of the socialist world, the rise of the internet, these are changes so immense, nobody could imagine them ever happening. And now that they have happened, nobody even bothers to mention what a big deal it is.
Or we make a breakthrough where we'll realize that we actually live in a much bigger space-time continuum than we previously thought, where there's a whole bunch of different dimensions waiting for us to join them in a much larger collective planetary and probably solar system or even galactic group. Certainly planetary. And we're all getting glimpses. Part of us knows this, all of us. We just choose to ignore it, or we've had it drummed out of us by indoctrination from religion, politics, or greed and power. It's all, the indoctrination is based on fear of this knowledge becoming commonplace. And that's why there's all the hype and spin around secret societies and conspiracy theories and paranoia. It's all designed to keep us down, keep us dumbed down. And that's where astrology is different to any other form of divinatory art, because all the other forms, whether they're tea leaf reading, tarot, channeling, any form of card or mediumship, they all rely on the skill and the intuition of the reader. Whereas astrology is a genuine mixture of mathematics, geometry, as well as intuition and psychology. So it's a true mixture of science and art. Without all of them, you can't do it.
Right.
I love geometry.
Yeah, and it definitely plays an important role, and I agree with you 110%. It's weird because we talk about this amongst ourselves and our groups and friends and family members, that there is just this tangible, whether they look into astrology or even what's going on in the world at all, there is just this tangible shift that everyone can kind of feel in the air, and they're like, what has happened? Like they feel like we're on the cusp of something about to happen. Whether it's an event, whether it's a series of events, something collectively converging, if you will. And, especially with, when you were talking about dimensions or planetary exploration and stuff, and we're having, we just had in the U.S. a congressional hearing about really big stuff. And some of the congressmen are bringing topics and mentioning things like interdimensional aspects to other beings. And I'm like, this is like, I was aware of this before, but to have a congressperson talk about this is bringing validity to so many areas, especially the things you talk about. It's like we're here. And I don't know if we'll see like the change that we want in our lifetime, but I completely envision that happening as far as us starting to see ourselves not as like, when you say the reducing of borders and just being a more unified planetary. We're just human civilization as a planet, not as, you're Jewish, you're Christian, and stop viewing each other as separate. So I think that once the collective consciousness makes that shift, and I'm starting to see it because I'm talking with seemingly normal people sometimes and coming to find that they're at a similar or higher awareness than I'm at right now. And I'm like, this is a stranger, like how something is happening behind the scenes, that's causing this movement. It fascinates me to no end.
There's also this thing that I said about no other species has ever had the power to affect its own future like we have. But
Right.
there's another thing. As far as I'm aware, there's never been a species on planet Earth that has the ability to laugh at itself.
Yeah.
We have humor that I'm not sure about cats and maybe dolphins, but most of the rest of life on this planet has never been able to do things like irony or pathos or sarcasm or slapstick. Cats have humor, I think, but cats are different.
Yeah. I have 4 cats. One of them may make an appearance at some point.
Mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. Like their personalities are something else. And in our last podcast, Kara Goodwin, my co-host cat, like just randomly just showed up on his shoulder, like in the podcast, and she just dropped laughing. I mean, I kept it in because it was so funny and natural. And I know there's something to dolphins too, because I know that I don't know to the exact degree, but I was reading articles about how they rival our intelligence and they can recognize their own reflections. But definitely. Another question I have for you is, how do you see the planetary cosmic cycles affecting the collective awareness about death and what comes next? Basically, I heard you mention in a podcast that you were aware that you weren't just your body. Through your own experiences and work, you've come to that conclusion. Correct me if I'm wrong or if I misspoke, but
You're right. You're right.
How did that come for you?
My studies of astrology over nearly 50 years now have led me to the inescapable conclusion that death is a fallacy. It doesn't exist. For thousands and thousands of years, we've been lied to by priests who say only we can talk to God. You can only talk to God through us. And now they're irrelevant because increasingly people are waking up and realizing there's more to life than life, that actually death doesn't exist. When this body that I am currently hosted in dies, then a few of my friends will get together and have a few drinks and swap stories about me. I might be listening in from the other side. My body will be burnt and plant a tree with a dust or something like that. I'm not bothered. But my soul is eternal. I will go on where I know that my friends who already have passed over will be having a big party waiting for me. I've realized that there is no such thing as death, that there is only eternal life. It's just that whilst I'm here in this 3-dimensional gravity well, in this 3-dimensional body, I'm here for a purpose. And I volunteered for that. Thing is, everyone volunteered, but the condition is that at the moment you volunteer, the moment you land, you forget why you volunteered. And you have to spend the rest of your life remembering what your mission statement is, why you volunteered. A lot of people, when they wake up, they go, I volunteered for this? Get me out of here. This is it's still a beautiful world.
Yeah.
But I'm quite looking forward to my death. And I'm not in a rush. The idea of death doesn't scare me at all. I hope I have a decent transition. I don't want to die in a hospital bed with pills and tubes and drugged up and in pain.
Me either.
I won't let that happen. But death doesn't scare me. What's the point? I shall go with pleasure when the time is right. I just think it's basically a letting go process. I have a great relationship with mortality. Saturn, in his form of the skeleton with the cowl and the scythe, he sits right there. And every so often he turns around and looks at me and smiles. And I just smile back at him and go, yeah, all right, one day. Not yet, not today. But then as we age, our relationship with mortality gets more simple, less complex. We become more acceptant of the fact, except for those people who live in fear, who have so much to lose. Oh my God, I've got so much money, but I can't change my life. Can I become immortal? No, you're going to become the richest corpse in the graveyard. Right? It's not about how much you got. It's what you do with it that counts. Legacy is everything. if I'm going to be remembered, I want to be remembered as someone who tried to make a difference to a lot of people and help people find a better way of seeing their role in the world, finding humor at themselves, understanding themselves more, and disempowering the huge combined structures of the world, the economics, the politicians, the religions. Because they just want power. There's a big difference between being powerful and power-filled. When you're powerful, you want to have power. You want to control situations. So you take the power and you absorb it into yourself, and then it gets stuck in a loop that just spins round and gradually decays, and you become more and more corrupt, twisted and sordid. Whereas if you are power-filled, power flows through you. It is not yours. You don't own it. You can't control it. But you are the conduit for it. It flows through you, and that way you can help others empower themselves. And then the world becomes a better place because power flows healthily. This is why I have a problem with the healers in the world. When I'm dealing with clients and they go, "Oh, I'm a healer," I just say to them these days, I just say, "No, you're not. Or if you are, you're a fool." If you're a healer, then you heal people, and people just get addicted to you.
Right. Right.
Whereas if you're a catalyst, that's what I call myself, you can empower people to heal themselves. Then they become self-empowered, and then they spread it around, and the world becomes a better place, and they don't get addicted to you.
Right. I
So,
completely agree with that.
yeah, that's why I like the idea of catalysts more than healers.
Right. And
I know it's semantics, but
no, I think it's 100% accurate too, because I did learn and I got certified in Reiki, and one of the principles that you learn is that you're not necessarily like healing the person, you're giving them the environment to heal themselves. And one of the things that I always lead up with whenever doing this on anyone is that, listen, sometimes things are going to come up. You can have a memory, you could have something that you held within yourself. It could be random. Like I was hovering over someone's leg and all of a sudden they have a memory of when they were a child and something bad happened to them, and that stuff comes up. And I tell them, even if after the session you leave feeling better, like not like when you came in, you still have to do the internal work, because then you're going to be right back here again if you don't go within yourself and do the healing yourself, because it's energy, and like you're responsible for yourself. And I truly believe that we have the power to heal ourselves. And in regards to death being an illusion, I completely agree with that. And just for the audience, isn't that interesting? And for those of you that know me, that talk about near-death experiences, and I haven't personally talked about astrology like that, but you can see how Steve has come to the same conclusion. Listening to people who've gone through the near-death experience, some of these people we've interviewed, they talk about death being like waking up from a dream, the same way you wake up from a dream in this reality and you're like, no, this is who I really am, and that was just a dream I'm having. That death is similar in that way, that you'll wake up to who you really are. Oh, I remember now. I remember why I came here, because they talk about that stuff. They talk about other lifetimes, that you'll be able to remember the totality of who you are as a being and why you chose to come here, because that's what they all say also, that it was a choice, exactly like you were mentioning.
yes, this is why I have a problem with reincarnation. I have a massive problem with it because, first of all, there's more people alive on planet now than there's been in the whole of history put together,
Right.
which kind of knocks linear reincarnation on the head. And also it's based on, the idea of reincarnation originally comes from either a Hindu stroke Sikh culture where 99% of the wealth is owned by 1% of the people and the rest just have a begging bowl.
Right.
And okay, all they can aspire to is, if I'm good this life and virtuous this lifetime, maybe I'll be rich next time, which is rubbish. Or it comes from a Platonic perspective, the transmigration of the soul, which in itself is a noble potential to it, but it still involves this idea of guilt. You only get reincarnated into a good body next time if you've been good this lifetime. And that is a religious guilt trip. I can't see how, if I have an eternal soul and I never die, how can I be reincarnated into a different person? I'm me. I've
Right.
always been me. And yes, at this time, I'm living in a body that has been given a name that I ascribe to whilst I'm down here. But it's a useful sleeve, it helps me get out to do what I'm meant to be doing. But this is my problem. This is why I have such a big problem with religion. And believe me, religion has a big problem with astrology.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up too, because it's my understanding that it isn't, it isn't the way you described it at all too, like the way religion kind of, or the way reincarnation is traditionally presented. It isn't like that as I understand it, because from the near-death experiences that I've spoken with and researched and looked into, they talk about on the other side, if you will, or spirit realm, whatever you want to call it, that time doesn't exist as we understand it here, that everything is happening all at once.
It's
So what
always
we, yeah, so what you would perceive, or what a normal person without that understanding would perceive as a past life or future life, is technically happening congruently. It's all happening all at once. And that even though that future or past perspective of, like, a past life of you is still you, but a different aspect of the same self, that as a multidimensional being in that space of everything happening all at once, you have the capacity to, of infinity. You have the capacity of infinity, so you can experience different things at different avenues, but you don't remember any of this until you like kind of leave. And one of the things that happened to me, I actually had an out-of-body experience. And when that happened to me, I always believed that there was something more. When it happened to me, it was just like, holy shit, this is real. Like, it's real. Like, we're not our body. And I remember someone I was dating at the time, she was like confused because after it happened to me, and I was just ranting, and she was just confused and dumbfounded as to what in the world I was talking about. But yeah, I don't think it's like, you're a good person now, so you'll have a good life next time. It's more, for the way they explain it, is it's more towards the development of the particular soul or being, or what that being needs to get out of a particular lifetime. Some souls, as I understand it, come to specifically help. And I truly believe you're one of them because of, the awareness that you're bringing. We live in an action-based reality where we have to, do things, and it takes action. Like, I'm more of an introvert. I never thought I would be doing this, doing a podcast, talking to people such as yourself. But one thing led to another. It pushed me to this, and I just feel like it's kind of like my mission to help in any way that I can. And you're right, with a lot of other people who are, making podcasts, like, and talking about this stuff, bringing this shift in awareness. It's almost like a, not silent, but kind of like a silent revolution, because I just feel like, the powers that were or whatever don't want this, the greed, the corrupt, but it's something that they can't really stop. It's kind of like, I often use the analogy of, it's like trying to punch the wave from hitting the shore. Like, it's happening, whether you want to or not.
Yes, that's how it seems to most people. The alternative viewpoint is that I'm completely mad and I'm a crackpot spouting a lot of rubbish. But if I am, I'm having a great time, and I'm not
Absolutely.
doing harm.
Right.
I'm just encouraging people to think for themselves. I've always considered myself an animist as opposed to believing any religion. I've always seen animals as having a form of consciousness, and plants and trees. When I discovered the idea of mycelium, not just of fungi, but the mycelium of trees, and how everything is interconnected with everything else, I sort of developed this idea of a mycelium of consciousness between individuals and collectives. And then I got introduced to the ideas of panpsychism, where I realized that animism just relates to things on Earth. If trees and animals have consciousness, why don't blades of grass? From then, it's a step on to, why don't rocks have consciousness? And if that's the case, then it's a short step from there into, do planets have consciousness? Where we get some of the archetypes from. And if planets have consciousness, then perhaps the solar system does. And from there, it's only a short step on to the ideas of the holistic universe.
Microcosm to the macrocosm.
Indeed. As above, so below.
That's the wonderful thing. And you keep bringing up points that have come up in my own research. And one thing that people mention a lot of in near-death experiences, like, for example, like if someone were to have a near-death experience, wake up in a garden somewhere or the forest or wherever it is, one thing that I notice that they keep bringing up is that whereas here we have the illusion of separate self, we're separate from each other when we really aren't. And from their point of view, they mention that the grass, the trees that are in the environment, the flowers, everything is alive, and they become astutely aware of that fact. And they're like, oh my God, how did I not realize this before? And I can actually communicate with the blade of grass, the trees, the rocks. And even
Yes.
in research I've done on hypnotherapy, where they had someone hypnotized, like kind of being regressed back and talking about this kind of stuff. One of the things that they mentioned was like rocks have consciousness. It may not be the consciousness that we're familiar with, but they do, that everything does. And it just keeps over and over and over and over again. They keep saying that. So it's like, as I hear you like talk about this, it's just extremely validating. But like I tell everyone all the time, it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what Steve says. Like if you're interested, if you want to know, do the research yourself, because I honestly believe you're going to come to similar conclusions if you put the work in. But even not, if you don't want to do that, some people don't have the interest. It's okay. Just, be a good person.
Yes. Yes. Don't hurt anyone.
Don't hurt anyone, and be the best version of yourself that you can be. And through that example, you
And
can indirectly help others.
But that brings me back to the ongoing thing, that the underlying force that dominates the world, the idea of guilt and sin,
Right.
is like, you're not good enough.
Hmm.
You don't deserve to be successful. You could do better. You should. It's a guilt trip.
Right.
Whereas I turn around to people and go, you know what? You're never going to get it right. You're never going to be good enough, but you're always getting better. It's not about being successful. It's about being the best you can, doing your best. And the only person that can tell you what your best is you. You are
Right.
judge, jury, and executioner here. So if anyone has the nerve to say to you, you're not doing that well enough, you're not good enough, you can say, look, doing my best. If you don't like it, fine, there's the door. It's not about being successful in terms of having a massive achievement or becoming rich or owning a Harley Davidson or a Lamborghini or having the most beautiful partner on your arm. It's about being, it's not about the destination. It's about being on the road and the experiences you get. It's the journey, not the destination, that makes you who you are. Every time you get to a destination, you get there and you think, oh, made it. Just it. Oh, no, where's the next journey? Where's the next destination?
Yeah.
I like being a traveler of consciousness, if you like.
Right. And that's, again, and I keep reiterating this, but like that's also something that's come up a lot. And they mention that, we're not judged like by God or anything like that when you leave the body, that we're really the judge of ourselves. What did we learn? What did we bring? How did we improve our lives and others? And the funny thing is that there's some people who had a near-death experience and they were extremely successful, and they were shown in their what's called the life review that really wasn't really what mattered. It was the moments they were shown were the moments they chose kindness, love, even such a thing as, oh, that lonely tree over there, I'm going to go water it today because I just feel like it needs it, that. And I find that beautiful. And it made me feel a lot better, especially where I was. And I was just like, I am where I am, and that's okay. And, I'm going to do the best I can, just like you said.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend's question, it was a good question, and I'm not sure how much you'll know about this, but she said, hi, Steve. I'm curious about astrocartography and how different locations might impact an individual's energy and well-being. Is there a way to determine if certain places are more or less favorable for someone's happiness and fulfillment? And if so, how do you approach that? She basically
Right.
also wants to know if it's like a thing, if it's real or if you're aware
Yeah,
of that.
it is real. 15 to 20% of my entire business now is astrocartography. Let me give you just a few sentences on the basics of how it works. There's a point in the horoscope called the ascendant, sometimes known as the rising degree or the rising sign. It's the point of the sun's orbit that's coming up at the time of your birth. So if the sun is on the ascendant at the moment of your birth, then you were born at sunrise. Right. So at the moment of your birth, there is a sine wave line, a line that goes like that over the surface of half of the earth, which is where the sun is rising at the moment of your birth. A corresponding line on the other side of the earth at the time of your birth shows where the sun is setting at the moment of your birth. The idea behind astrocartography is that if you go to that point, to any of the points on that line where the sun was rising at the moment of your birth, it is the start of a new day for you. It is where you are at your most energetic, most energized, most integrated, assimilated, and holistic. So anybody who goes to where the sun was rising at the time of their birth is always going to attune themselves to the energy of the land and feel really comfortable in it. Similarly, if anybody goes to the point of the planet where the sun was directly overhead at the time of their birth, either due north, due south, or directly overhead, on what's called astrologically the midheaven, the highest point of the sun's orbit at the time of your birth, then that is always seen as the best place for job, work, and career. Anybody you work with from those locations, any companies from those locations you do business with, any professional contacts you have with people or companies from those locations, your glass is always going to be 70% full. Now, I have thousands of statistics and referrals from clients who've gone, yeah, you sent me there and it worked. And some of the stories I get, I say to people, look, I'm really, really sorry, but the place I need to send you for your relationship development, I'm really sorry, is Kathmandu in the center of Nepal. And then they'll go, that's where I met my wife. And I'm like, okay, right. But the thing is, I hear so many of these stories. I know it works.
Right. I'm super glad you brought that up. I'm glad she asked that question because I didn't know what she wanted to ask. I was just asking her on a whim, hey, is there anything you're curious about asking? And she's asking that too because I know that we feel like we need to leave. So that's why, I'm going to look into this after this interview.
There are certain spots on the globe where it seems a lot of people are drawn towards.
Right.
There are certain spots which seem to be very, very popular amongst the current clutch of souls on the planet at the moment. Places, for example, so many people seem to be being drawn towards Iceland.
That's one of the places I was investigating actually to move. That's funny.
Southern Peru or Cambodia. And it's just surreal how many people... And doing astrocartography has given me a great awareness of the geography of our planet. I can name all 50 states in locational order now because I've done so much astrocartography for Americans.
That's amazing.
For example, the island of Bermuda,
Mhm.
which is due south of Nova Scotia and due east of Charleston, right, is precisely, it's a little island in the middle of nowhere. It's exactly the opposite side of the world from Singapore. But I have so many clients in Bermuda and so many clients in Singapore, and I've been to both these places so many times, I find it surreal that I should be drawn to two equidistant points, two furthest points from each other so many times. Been in Bermuda about 9 times, been to Singapore 7 or 8 times. Yeah, I haven't been to any of the places around them. I don't understand why this works the way it does, but I know that it does work, and I know that I like it. And sometimes the more you try and understand, the further away the realization goes. Whereas the more you just flow with it, the more you realize you're just surfing the wave. You're flowing with it. You don't need to understand.
Right. I agree with that completely. To wrap things up today, what is a message you would provide to our audience, especially younger audience, for anyone listening, anyone curious? And I know you often say that astrology finds you. And that you don't find astrology. And I know that there are many in the audience that may have watched this video and this was that day, or maybe they come across it some other way.
I call astrology as the lingua franca, the global language of the emerging consciousness revolution. It's a language that millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people now are learning to speak without knowing each other's language. I can sit down with people from 10 different cultures who cannot understand each other in terms of language and just write down a number of planetary symbols and equations, and they'll all go, oh yeah, I know that. And we can talk using the language of astrology in a way that transcends normal language. I've always said that if astrology were taught in schools, within 2 generations, we'd see an end to warfare, misogyny, racism, violence. Everyone would know each other. I also think we'd see an international state, and we'd be unified by things like moon signs or something like that. Because when I do organize conferences sometimes, I put people on different tables according to their moon sign, because the moon sign shows how you get on with people. And when you get a group of people all with the same moon, they always like the same food, the same music, they react the same. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar. And it's easy. When you're with someone with the moon in the same sign, you dance around each other in the kitchen. You like the same food and music. You don't disagree. You just generally easily blend. So when you put a group of them together, you get such a productive output. I have a couple of companies on my book who employ me to look at their employees' charts, not to find out if they want to sack them or hire them, but to maximize the best potential from the employees they've got.
That's pretty amazing.
And that is a good use of astrology in the modern world today.
Yeah. I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
Astrology is never going to... They've tried getting rid of it in so many ways. They used to burn astrologers on the stake. They would throw them to the lions. They'd decapitate them. And they even tried getting rid of them through ridicule. But somehow astrology always pervades. It's been around forever. Ever since someone got off their knuckles on the East African plain and looked at the sky and went, oh, wow, what's that? Right, let's make legends, let's make myth, let's make meaning. There's always been a relationship with the heavens.
Absolutely.
And as long as we stare up at the sky at night and see things moving, we will wonder with awe and we will try and attribute some type of meaning to it. And that's what astrology is, the interface between above and below. And without it, I can't conceive of what we would be like. We would be robots.
Yeah. I don't think it's ever going to die too. I'm in agreement there too. And where can people find you for those curious and wanting to reach out?
Steve Judd Astrology on YouTube, Steve Judd Astrology on Instagram. I'm not hard to find.
I'll put it up on the screen.
I still do astrological readings, but I've got a 2.5-year waiting list at the moment. I do get back to everyone in time, but it can take a couple of years. And I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to retire. I don't only do readings, I do astrological, I organize conferences. I'm doing a really big 11-part documentary on the history of Western astrology, which will be out in less than 6 months. I've got various books out. I'm not difficult to find. I'm out there online.
That's awesome. I'm probably at some point I'm going to have a conversation with my girlfriend and probably reach out because I didn't know you did astrocartography. Might end up doing that with you at some point.
Yeah.
Because we need some direction. So I appreciate that. But I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. It's been back and forth to try to get you here because we've both had schedule conflicts, but I appreciate you taking the time to actually make it. And you're a gentleman and a scholar. I appreciate the work you do. And thank you for inspiring us and others.
My pleasure, Christian. Let's do it again sometime in the future.
Absolutely. And hopefully the other co-hosts will be around and then we can have a group discussion and for everyone else.
Next time, I'll let my evil twin brother come out.
Perfect. I can't wait for that.
I have an alter ego that does rather basic and crude astrological stand-up comedy.
That's awesome. Yeah, we would definitely love to have him on. And for everyone watching, thanks for watching and listening. If you like and enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Cosmic Convergence so you don't miss an episode. And until then, we'll catch you on the next one.
Catch you later, world.
Thank you.
Of our healthcare system.